Page 44, consonants. This piece is in common time or 4/4 time. It's in the key of F major, which means it has one flat, a B flat. All the B's are flatted, unless they have a natural sign. Blah blah blah. You've heard it all before. Melody is the top note in the right hand, so bring out the melody. You want to hear that. So let's talk about the right hand first, since we're there. We have this thing in the third measure. It's called a turn. T-U-R-N, turn. They've written out the notes for the turn up above the staff, the little note, the little thing. That a lot of times editors will do this to tell you how they think this ornament should be played. A turn is an ornament, and as all ornaments, it is optional. Although I think I pretty much always do the turn. Let's talk about the notes involved in a turn. The actual notes written without the turn are the B flat to the F. And the turn is just a little ornament, a little flourish, if you will, between those two notes. So all it is the notes around the B flat. That's all it is. But the B flat is included as part of the turn, so it's all that. Then you resolve to the F. And they're playing them, they have 16th notes, but there's 5 notes. And there can only be 4 notes in 16th notes. So what you do is you play them sort of like 16th notes, but a little quicker, because you got to get all 5 notes in, and they're all even. So you have to experiment so you can do it. And I suggest you go really, really, really slow first. So it's like I put the metronome on 50 for quarter notes. So it would be the third measure without the turn would be 1, 2, 3, 4. If I had 16th notes, it's 1 eanda, 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda. But because there's 5 notes in there, it's got to go just a little bit quicker than that, so we have to experiment. And you make those notes last so they're all even between the B flat and the F. Then when you're kind of comfortable with that, then you speed up the metronome a little bit. So at 60, it's more like this. Well, I want to play this with you about 70. So at 70, it would be this. And, you just kind of get it. And that's really what that is. You'll find turns a lot. Now, there's basically 2 kinds. Well, more than 2 kinds, but the placement is different. In this piece, the turn is between 2 notes. And the turn is actually the C. That's the turn. The first B flat in it isn't part of the turn, it's the note. So when the turn is between 2 notes, you're playing both of those notes and the turn is in the middle. So it's the B flat. And some people will hang on to that first note a little longer. And it's an interpretive thing. In this style of music, written at this time by this composer, play them even. The other way of doing a turn is to put it on the note. So if in the printed music, if that little turn signal were above the B flat, then you wouldn't play the B flat first. All right, the turn is centered around the B flat, like that. So it would be this. You'll see it both ways. You have to be careful which way you go. And it's unfortunate because sometimes an editor will change what the composer did. The composer may put a turn in one place and the editor says, I think I like it better over here, and they'll move it. And you don't know they did. Now, you also get a turn in the third line. Third measure, we're going between the F and the C, but it's the same, you're just centered around the F. And it's played the same way. So the third measure, the third line was that. I want to talk about the fingering, and since I'm here, I'm going to start with this turn. The turn up above is simple fingering. You just finger it, your fingers are on the keys, you just play it. This turn in the third line doesn't work quite so well because your thumb plays the F. Because you're coming off of the AF, the first beat of the measure, with a 2-5. Then the thumb plays the F, fourth finger plays the G, 3, 2, 1, and then you can do the C. This is a standard fingering for turns. It's used a lot. I use it a great deal. It's 1, because it's very quick. You can do it over and over. It really works once you get the hang of it. So in that measure, I suggest that fingering. So if I play the measure at 70, it would be this. Something like that. Now let's go back up and talk about fingering on other places just a little bit. Second line, last two measures. You're starting out with 1-3 on the FA, 1-5, 1-4. See the 4-5? Now substitute the fifth finger for it, so you can do the fourth on the next one. What we're trying to do is connect the melody. I've preached about this before in other videos. You want to feel the melody. The melody is this. You want to feel it, and you can feel it better if you can play it legato with the fingers, not using the same finger each time. So what they're doing here is, on the melody, they're simply allowing us to play it legato. And that's why it's done that way, and I strongly recommend it. I'm a big believer in feeling the melody with the fingers. The bottom note, you want to connect it as best you can, but it's not as important as the melody. The melody is what you bring out, so it's okay. First measure, the third line, same thing. You have a 1-4, then a 1-5, and then substitute the fourth, so you can go on up. Now, they're showing a 1-5 on the B flat G for the second measure of the third line. I like 2-5 because, again, the black note. And then the third measure, I talked about the measure with the turn. It's a 2-5 on the AF. Your hands are spread out a little bit, but work it, because this is used a lot in music, so yeah. Then in the last line, next to the last measure, it's a 1-3, 1-5, 1-4, substitute the 5. It's the same as the second line, except the notes are different. Now, as far as the left hand goes, let's talk about the left hand a little bit. Right at the beginning, the first couple measures, you see a whole note and a quarter note next to each other. Thinking, do I play this twice? What's going on? Well, what they're doing is they're showing two voices. You can show multiple voices in music. Even in piano, we can show multiple voices. It would be, if you were to arrange this for instruments, a small group of instruments, one voice would take the whole note only. Another voice would take the quarter notes. So the way we do it in piano is we play both voices. You play the whole note and you're going to hold it down while you play the other Fs. Because when you play the whole note, you're automatically playing the quarter note. Then in the second measure, of course, it's a dotted half note because the fourth beat in that measure is a rest, and none of the voices in the left hand are sounding during the rest. Rest. Third measure, I recommend, because they don't give you any fingerings, I recommend a 4 on the B flat, and a 2, then a 4, and then a 1. Basically, you're in this position till you get to the last measure and you're in this position. Second line, you have this. Back to two voices again. Make sure you hold the whole note down for the whole measure. Then the third measure, a 2, 1. You're in in C position down here. Third line, same thing again. On your up here, hold the whole note down. Then when you get to the third measure, I recommend F position. Last line, I recommend a third finger on the B flat. And that's the fingering I recommend. Take a look at, for instance, at the first line last measure. Or, if you'd rather, it's the last measure of the first line. You're here. Doesn't seem bad? Well, take a look. Keep your hands there, but take a look at the first measure of the second line. Now you're here. How are you going to get from here to here? There's no rest or nothing. The beat goes on. Now this is andantino. Andantino is, depending on who you ask, is a little slower than andante, and andante is just a nice comfortable speed. Andantino will be a little slow, so it's not a fast piece, but you still got to go from here to here. Good luck. There's some other movements in the left hand that I'll talk about shortly, but I want to talk about this one little thing we do in piano. It's a little more advanced thing, but okay, that's all right. You can handle advanced stuff, at least some of it now. Is just because a note is written in a particular staff or a particular hand doesn't mean it has to be played by that hand. There's no rule that says the left hand has to play these notes down here and the right hand has to play these notes. We do it because it just works out conveniently. You know, it's comfortable this way. That's just the way it is. But in that last measure, there's no reason why the right hand can't play that last F. To accommodate that, because now we want to play an F, the last F in the line with the right hand, we got to do it with the thumb, right? I could cross over, but I don't want to. I'm going to change the fingering of the last measure slightly. Normally you'd be playing the half note, the B flat D with 2/4. You just played it in the previous measures, the previous note. Well, what we do quite often, we change the fingering on it. Instead of 2/4, we use 3/5. That allows us to play the quarter notes with 2/4. Now we're in position to play the F. So the last 3 notes or 4 notes or whatever they are in the right hand for the first line is that. During that rest, that gives the left hand time to go down where it needs to go. So if I play the last 2 measures of the first line going into the first measure of the third line, it would be more or less like this. You get the idea? So if something is a little tricky, think about, can the other hand play something to help it out, to the hand that's having a problem. In the second line, last measure, the right hand has a quarter rest. We need to hear the rest. So you're going to play it here. But the left hand stays down. Now, you have to go from here to here. But that's actually quite common in piano. So I recommend you bite the bullet and do your best to do that. To jump that octave, right? Because you'll be better off later on when the music starts to get really hard. It's like the third line, second and third measures. I'm going from here to here. Again, just do it, as Nike would say. Third line, last measure. It's similar to the first line, last measure, but the left hand doesn't have to go so far because you're here. Then you have to go to here. That's doable. That's not that far. You can do that. I don't see a lot gained by trying to change the fingering there so the right hand plays the C, because you want to bring out the melody, you want the melody to be legato, and it's kind of just stuck with this fingering. I could do finger substitutions and things to make it work. But that's a lot more work than it is for the left hand to simply go from here to here. So I recommend you just play it the way it's written there. In the last measure of the piece, down at the bottom, you're here. You have a rest in the right hand, but not in the left hand. So that last beat is that F by itself for one count. It has sempre piano. Sempre means always. Piano means soft. So it simply means the whole thing is soft. Keep it soft, always soft. So you're never going to get loud on this. It's a soft piece. It's a sweet piece. It's the kind of piece you could play to put somebody to sleep, more or less. Assuming you play it well with the correct notes and all. At the end of the second line, you see a double bar at the end of the line. Double bars separate sections of music. So the first two lines is one section of music. The second two lines is another section of music, just for your enjoyment. Doesn't affect how you play it, doesn't affect how you interpret it. It's just, that's the way, I'm just trying to explain what's there. The numbers at the beginning of each line, the second, third, and fourth lines, there's a little number with parentheses. Again, that is the measure number. So if I referred to a measure number, you could count over from that measure to find the measure I'm talking about. I didn't use measure numbers, but those are what those. I'm just trying to make sure you understand all these symbols and things you're seeing. So let's try this out. Since it's in common time, I'll give us 4 counts and we'll play it together. There is no pedal, of course. This style of music doesn't have pedal. Please don't use pedal. I put the metronome on 70. I think we can handle that speed. And that's actually pretty close to how fast it would go. It might go a little faster, but not much. So the right hand starts here, here, left hand, and we're ready to go. 1, 2, ready, go.